There's 4 Colleen in the room.
Not numbering.
We feel blessed for your sleep. I don't need, is there a thing about can you wear gloves when you
I don't see why not.
Can you work on the center?
You know, of course, but you know, right? But
I mean, you use the yard to.
I know what I'm saying. There's a, you know that book, this is.
Yeah, this is the Torah.
He has all these, like, like, for example, you're not supposed to touch the table when you read, and I often, in the middle of reading, I feel myself, like I'm leaning, and,
Yeah, there's all kinds of crazy vision. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Hey, there may very well be one about
I know,
it.
I'm gonna try and. I don't remember.
I know there are rules about you can't. I mean, whether when you read the Torah or reading actually for some other purpose. And the answer, I think, comes out to be yes, you can cover it with something else, and you put the Torah on the cover. But there are levels of crucial, or whether crucial is a part of the Torah to the thing.
You're right. Most of the rules have to do with, like, some version of the same Torah, but the logical weird how they got there may not make sense.
Shabbat shalom. Oh, you wore gloves. That was so smart.
Ariella.
Yeah, I know.
Shabbat shalom to Ariella.
And I thank you effort. Right?
We're on. And just so we next week, I don't know why I pick up the regulars. Next week,
Well, definitely.
Yeah.
I don't think.
She's not with me.
She's all serious.
Oh, she's giving herself a hard time. I mean, it is long, and she does take her time, but she's very professional. She did say that she's having trouble with the blessings after, and she wants everyone to see them. So I'll just make that very clear. Yeah. It's one of those things that you think you know really well, and you have to do it by yourself, and you realize, oh, this is more nuanced than I thought.
That's where most students mess up.
Yeah,
in that
exactly.
department.
It's hard. I had to relearn it just now to make sound files work. Okay.
All right, Shabbat shalom to our small minion gathered here. But it'll grow. Actually, I don't think we're a small minion yet, but we're very close. Oh, here we are. We're counting Ariella's got to hold that fumash, but still. Otherwise, or should I miscount? All right, we're good. I think. So I'll explain the minion. So I can't remember which source material it is, but the myth that you can count the Torah as a tenth is actually, the idea is no, you can't, but you can count. Some liberal authorities, and this is not a conservative movement, this is a much older thing, count a kid who can read Hebrew holding a chumash as the tenth. I have to look at where the source, but that's what it is. They have to hold the Torah, and the Torah itself, or holding the chumash counts as holding the Torah. But you can only do that for one. You can't have 10 kids holding the chumash. In any case, here we go. We're here. Let's do a little Macho Vu today, page 68. Macho now have well over 10, so you're okay, Ariella. Do your thing. Please rise, as most people here already did, page 73. ברוך אתה אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לשכתי בינה בין יום ובין לילה. ברוך אתה אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשני בצלמו. ברוך אתה אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשני ישראל. ברוך אתה אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשני בן חורים. ברוך אתה אלוהינו מלך העולם, פוקח עברים. ברוך אתה אלוהינו מלך העולם, מביש ערמים. ברוך אתה אלוהינו מלך העולם, עטיר סורים. ברוך אתה אלוהינו מלך העולם, זוקף כפופים. ברוך אתה אלוהינו מלך העולם, בקר ארץ על מים. ברוך אתה אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשה לכל צורכי. ברוך אתה אלוהינו מלך העולם, המכין מצדק עבר. ברוך אתה אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר ישב בגבורה. ברוך אתה אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר ישב בתפארה. ברוך אתה אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר תן לעייף כוח. All right, we may be seated. We go to page 134. Hallelujah, 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 el mekocho. Hallelujah, hallelujah, berkia uzo. Hallelujah, hallelujah, bigurotav. Hallelujah, hallelujah, kerov gulo. Hallelujah, hallelujah, beteka shofar. Hallelujah, hallelujah, benevel bechinor. Hallelujah, hallelujah, betovu maho. Hallelujah, hallelujah, beminim be'ugav. Hallelujah, hallelujah, betziltzalei shama. Hallelujah, hallelujah, betziltzalei teruah. Kol shama tehallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, kol shama tehallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. In a bizarre twist, I'm going to turn you now to page 139. And actually, we rise for this. We're going to read silently mostly, but the Song of the Sea to prepare us for next week's Torah portion. So let's be thinking about it. Az yashir Moshe v'nei Israel Yashir Azavah Yom V'Levor Ashir L'Adonai Ki Golgah Yeshua. מי כמוך בעיני אדוני, מי כמוך נראה בקודש, ומפעיל ומספר. כי לרעם לך משה בגאים ועלו משיעים בהר ציון לשפוט את הר עשיו. והייתה לרעם המלוכה והיה אדוני מלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. We can be seated for a little while. שמעת כל חי תברך את שמך. ידמה לך ומי ישווה לך ומי יערוך לך אלא גדול גבורנה אליון פני שמיים בארץ נעלה לך שפך חנפרך לברכת שם קודשך כאמור דוד ברכי נפשת אדוני וחוק רבה את שם קודשו היאר בתעצמות עוזך הגדול בכבוד שמך הגיבור לנצח ונערותיך המלך היושב על כיסא רם ונישא שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו וכתוב tzadikim baronai l'shirim navat tehila. B'fi yesharim tithalal, u'v'divrei tzadikim titbarach, u'v'shon chasidim titramam, u'kerev kedoshim titkadash. U'makalot rivevot, amcha beit Yisrael. Ishtabach Shimcha Le'ad Malkeinu Ha'el HaMelech HaGrov HaKadosh V'Shamayim V'Aretz Kilchan Adonai Eloheinu V'Elohei Avoteinu Shiru Shvacha Alel V'Zimra Ozu Memshala Netzach Kedila Ukura Tila V'Tiferet Kedusha U'Malchut V'Rachot V'Odot Ve'atar Ve'ad Olam Baruch Atah Adonai Emelech Gadol Batishbachot Ela Odaot Adon Aniflo Rabacher B'Shirei Zimra Melech Elkei Olamim Yitkedal V'Yitkedash Shemei Rabbah Yamar Yivrach Yerutei V'Yamlich Malchutei V'Chayechon V'Yomechon V'Yechol Beit Yisrael B'Galav B'Zman Karev V'Meru Amen Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Ve'olamon Le'amaya Yivarach Yishtabach Yivarvim Mam V'Naseh Yitadar V'Talei V'Talal Shmei Kudusha B'Richu Elamiku B'Chata V'Shirata Tushbechata V'Nechemata Damiran V'Alma V'Meru Amen Baruch Hu Et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Na'Vorach Le'Olam Va'ed Baruch Atah Adonai L'Mechalam Yotzor B'Choshech V'Seh Shalom V'Goret V'Akol Akol Yoducha L'Amor Yishavucha En geërkecha ve'en zulatecha, efes biltecha, u'midomela. En geërkecha ve'en zulatecha, efes biltecha, u'midomela. En geërkecha ve'elohim ve'olam hazeh, ve'en zulatecha malkinu zayei olam haba. Efes biltecha golenu limod hamashiach. In your melech HaMoshiach l'tfiat hametim El Adonai kol ha'ma'asim Baruch Borach b'fi kol neshama Golo v'tuvo ma'ale olam Da'at u'tvuna sovev imoto Amika'eh al chayot ha'kodesh v'nedor v'chavod Al ha'merkava zechut u'mishor lifnei chiso Kesef v'rachamim lifnei kevodo Tov me'orot shebara Eloheinu yitzaram b'da'at b'bina u'haskel Koach u'gura natan bahem liot moshlim b'kerev tevel Male'im ziv u'mfikim noga na'ezibam b'chol ha'olam Semechim b'tzeitam v'sasim b'voam Osim b'hem ha'retzon kodam Bravo, nonim lishmo Tola verina l'zecher malchuto Kara l'shemesh v'yizrach or Ra'a v'hitkin surat almana She'evach nonim lo Kol tzeva marom Tiferet u'gedula Zerafim be'kofanim be'chayot ha'kodesh Shabbat mikol ha'ma'asim Shechaseatecha ve'omer shasite baruch hasela dipara tzurenu malkeinu v'go'aleinu borei kedoshim yishtabach shimcha le'ad malkeinu וכולם פותחים את פיהם לקדושה ותורה, בשירה ובזמרה, מברכים ומשבחים, דברים ומריצים ומקישים וממליכים, את שם האל המלך הגדול והנורא, קדוש הוא. וכולם מקבלים עליהם או מלכות שמיים זה מזה, ורבים ושות זה לזה, להקדיש לעצמם בנחת רוח, בספרה בנימה, קדושה כולם כאחד, עונים ואומרים ביראה. קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאו, בארץ כבודו. לפני בחורש ברש קרוב מנסים למצרפים, לבתם משכים ואומרים, ברוך כבוד אדוני, במקומו לברך נמרוד ייתנו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות. ברוך אהבתנו אדוני אלוהינו. Hem gedol ורחמת עלינו. אבינו מלכנו בעבור אבותינו, שבטחו בך אבינו מלכנו. ותלמדם חוקי חיים, כן תכוננו למדנו. אבינו האב הרחמן, רחם רחם עלינו. ותן ליבנו להבין ולהשכיל לשמוע, ללמוד וללמד, לשמור ולעשות, ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה. והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ונייחד לבבנו לאהבה וליראה את שמך, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, כי בשם הגדול והנורא נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך, והביאנו לשלום בארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו, כי אל אוהל ישועתה ובנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון, וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול. סלה באמת להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעם ישראל באהבה. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבדיך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאור על ידיך. והיו לטובות בעיניך ולטובתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. On pages 167 and 168. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לבביכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם בארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת. אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת. ודבר קיים ושמו קיים, וכיסו נכון המלכותו ונותו ליד קיימת, ודבריו חיים וקיימים. ותשתחו אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, מלכינו מלך אבותינו, גואלנו גואל אבותינו, יוצאנו צור ישועתנו, עודנו מצלנו מעולם שמך, אין אלוהים זולתך, עזרת אבותינו אתה הוא מעולם. Top of page 173. Tilot Elyon Baruch U'Vorach Moshe b'nei Yisrael chanu Shabbat b'simcha rabah v'amru kulam Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai Mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh Norah tehilot osei Shira Hadasha, Shiku Geulim, Leshimcha al Sfat Hayam, Yachad Kulam Hodu Ve'imlichu Ve'amru, Adonai Yimloch Le'olam Vared. Tzur Yisrael, Kuma Be'ezrat Yisrael, Uvtekenu Mecha Yehuda Ve'Yisrael, Aleinu Adonai Tzvaot Shemo Kadosh Yisrael Baruch Atah Adonai Gal Yisrael. 5 in Amidah, pages 175 through 192. We're going to repeat the Amidah back on page 175. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufia ki tehilatecha Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elokei Avoteinu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah El Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon, Gomel Chatzarim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot, Umevi Goel Livnei B'neihem, Leman Shemo V'Yahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ufokei Tzara, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei Meitim Atah Ra Le'Hoshia, Mashiva Ruach Umorid HaGashem, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei Meitim Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Berofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Mishenei Mafar, Micham Ochabal Yevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Meimik, Umechaye, Umatziach Yeshua, Reman Atal Chayot Meitim, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechaye HaMeitim. Please rise for Kedusha. Kadesh et Shimcha ba'olam, Keshem shemati shimo, Tobish memarom, Kakatu v'yad b'yecha, V'kara zel zeh be'amar, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Meloach, Haaretz kevodo. Azmen kol ra'ash gadol, Adir b'chazak mashmi'im kol, Minasim nilmat serafim, Lumatam Baruch yomeru, Baruch kevod Adonai Mimkom chavalkeinu, Tofia v'timloch aleinu, Ki mechakim anachnu la, Matai timloch b'tzion, V'karom yamin le'olam ba'et tishkon, Tikadal v'tikadash, V'tok Yerushalayim bircha, V'dor v'ador, U'lenetzach netzachim, V'eineinu tihirenna, Malchutecha, Kadavar, Amur, V'shirei uzecha, Al yedei David Mashiach tzidkecha, Yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elohai yikzion, Ledor, Vador, Hallelujah. להגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושפחך אלינו מפינו לא יבוש לעולם ועד, כי לא קרוב הקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. We may be seated, page 181. Yismach, 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 Moshe b'matnat, 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 chelko, ki eved ne'eman, ne'eman, ay karata lo, ay, Yismach, 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 Moshe b'matnat, 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 chelko, ki eved ne'eman, ne'eman, ay karata lo. Fair brochure natanta, bomdol fnachar har Sinai, ושל כל תמנים מורים בידו, וכתוב בהם שמירת שבת, וכן כתוב בתורתך. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. הנה בני ישראל עתידי עולם, כי ששמו שרי ושמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. ולא נתתו אדוני אלינו גוי ארצות, ולא חנכתו מלכינו לעובדי פסילים, וגם מנוחתו לא ישכנו ערלים. ישראל עמך נתתו גאווה לזרע יעקב, אשר בם בחרת. מקדשי שביעי שבת, כולם יספו, ויתענגו בטובך שבת, והשביעי רק תכתבו וקידשתו שבת, חמדת ימים אותו קראת זכר למעשה בראשית. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו רצי במנוחתנו, קדשנו במצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך, צווינו מטובך ושמחנו בישועתך, וטהר ליבנו לעבדך באמת, והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה וברצון, שבת קודשך ואנוכו בישראל מקדשי שמך. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. רצה אדוני אלוהינו ועמך ישראל, ובתפילתם והשבת עבודה לדביר ביתך באישי ישראל, ותפילתם באהבה תקבל ברצון ותהי לרצון תמיד. עבודת ישראל עמך ותחזינה עינינו בשובך לציון ברחמים. ברוך אתה אדוני המחזיר שכינתו לציון. מודים אנחנו שתרנו אלינו ולאבותינו. התבחילו חדור רחמך וחמכם כאילו תמו חסדיך ולם קיווינו לך. יעקב יברך ויברמם שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד, וידענו לך סלע ולא את שמך באמת, אלא ישורתנו ועזרתנו סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני הטוב שמך לך נאה להודות. אלוהינו ולאבותינו ברכנו בברכה המשולשת בתורה הכתובה על ידי משה עבדך, האמורה מפי בניו, קוראים קדושך כאמור. יברך ה' וישמרך, ירח פניו אליך ויחונך, ישא פניו אליך וישם לך שלום. שים שלום, שים שלום בעולם טובה וברכה. שים שלום טובה וברכה. חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל עמך. ברכנו אבינו כולנו כאחד בקול פניך. שים Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom Ba'olam Tova Uvracha, Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Ki v'yorbanecha natata lanu Adonai Eloheinu Torah Chaim v'ahavat chesed tzedakah uvracha v'rachamim v'chaim v'shalom. Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom Ba'olam Tova Uvracha, Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. V'tov b'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני, ברך תבוא ישראל בשלום. 193. Ravi Grashme Rabbi, Ramani Rachirte Vemlich Machute Bechayachon, Vemchem Chol Beit Yisrael, Bagalavis Man Karivim Meru, Yeheshme Rabba Mevorach, Leolam Leolam Me'om Ma'ayid, Yibarach Vishtabach, Barber Ramina Sevi, Tadavi Televi Telal Shmei Kudusha Amru, Le'elam Yiko Berchata V'shivat Tanshvat, V'nechemata Damiram V'yama V'imeru, Yikot Soton V'oton V'chol Yisrael, Rama V'on Divishmai V'imeru, Yishlom Ramin Shamayim Chemon V'yakol Yisrael V'imeru, Oseh Shalom V'imromah, U'ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'yal Kol Yisrael V'yal Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'imeru. DA. All right, Torah service, page 195. Let's have Jerry and Ann open the ark, please. And whoever's the John, you'll just carry the Torah as well as take it out. We've got. I'm just warning them early on in advance. We've got 2 kids to do Entree today already so far, and so even though they're in different grades, and they both know it really well and have good voices. So we're in good shape. But just letting you know you're on today. Okay, there's no. All right, page 195. Ein kamocha va'elohim Adonai ve'ein k'ma'asecha v'alutecha malchut olamim u'memshalecha bechol dor v'ador Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai iloh le'olam va'ed Adonai hoz le'olam Adonai Yivarech Edano B'Shalom Ahar Rachamim Eitiv B'Virtzoncha Et Zion Tivnei Chomot Yerushalayim Tivnei Chomot Yerushalayim Please rise. Soharon Vayomer Moshe Kura Adonai Ve'afutsu Oivecha Ve'afutsu Mesanecha V'Ipanecha Ki Mitzion Tetzei Torah Ki Mitzion Tetzei Torah U'Devar Adonai V'Yerushalayim Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah Le'amo Yisrael V'Kedushato Ve'Lishnei Kadisha Yakira Ana Eglar Tu Shvechan Yehera Vakrodama Hashim Mishalim Delibi Beli Badekol Amach Yisrael Retado Lechaim Beli Shlam Amen. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonai Kadosh Shemo. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonai Kadosh Shemo. Adonai Iti, Uneram Hashemo Yachdav. Echad Adonai Hagedula, Hagedura, Hagedeh. Remember, it just goes out there, no kissing or touching the Torah. Just alright. Not yet. Adonai Eloheinu, ve'ishtachavu, le'hadam ragam kadoju, romamu, Adonai Eloheinu, ve'ishtachavu, le'har kosho, kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. All right, we can be seated. As we turn to Parshat Bo, the third triennial, which will start in the middle of the night, which I know doesn't help you with a page number or verse number or anything, but that is where it starts. It is 1229, Exodus chapter 12, verse 29, as far as the page goes. That is 387. And this is the plague of the firstborn, which takes place in the middle of the night. Now, the thing about, well, this plague, in the middle of the night, B'chatzi halayla, it's a phrase, of course. There's a whole bunch of phrases in this little part of the triennial that remind me of a whole bunch of other phrases in the Torah. And that's what I'm going to talk about later. So, if you're going through the reading, you see a phrase that kind of sounds like something else, just think about it, hold the thought, and we'll see if we came up with the same stuff. All right, so Mike, we want to come up. I know you're back there. You want to come for the first Aliyah, or come on up? We do, but they've all had lots of Aliyot recently, and
you're overdue.
Yeah, you're overdue. Yeah, we have an embarrassment of Kohanim here. I think there's 6 today, and 1 Levi. All right, we'll have the second Aliyah. Are there any other Levites besides Sid here? You're going to have a second, and then I'll start working on the rest. All right, once again, page 387.
Amen. Hakol havugo delelenu nu kavod laTorah Kohen Karav Yamod Michael ben Raphael ba'Abraham HaKohen Baruch Shanatan Torah le'Amo Yisrael b'Kedushato V'yatem et Vikim Baranai Elohechem Chayim Kulchem Hayom. We just need a reason. There we go.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, yeah. Martin White is our first reader. I heard
Most important guy.
Yeah, it's true. And I knew all but 1 Torah reader is here. So hopefully they will show up before the Torah. And this is Martin White's first time reading Torah here.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'karban mikol ha'amin v'natan lanu et torto baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Vayhi b'chatzi halayla v'Adonai hika kol b'kol be'eretz Mitzrayim nichor paro hayeshev al kiso ad b'kol hashvi'i asher bebet avot b'kol b'kol behema v'kam paro layla hu b'kol avdav b'kol Mitzrayim v'tihi Zakak b'lav b'Mitzrayim ki ein bait asher sham met vayikra Moshe Aaron la'ayla vayomer k'mu zeu mitoch ami gam atem gam bnei Yisrael uchu ivdu et Adonai tidaberhem Gam samtem, gam befartem tehu, kasher dibarhem neleku, v'raket oti, gamoti. Go on.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayalam natan b'tokeinu baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Second Aliyah, verses 33 through 36. Call on Sidlevi for the Aliyah. Yep. Levi. Yep. And Kelsey Perla is the Torah. Cynthia, you're the Aliyah. You're the blessing.
Yamot Zvi ben Hirshlev Halevi.
33 through 36.
Yeah.
And who's the Torah? It's Kelsey.
It isn't, yeah.
Yeah, stay on up there.
Okay.
And it's 33 through 36. The Egyptians, enough already, tells them to leave. And they give them their things that various, I think the Eitzheim has borrowed, but it's actually what the words used are a form of sha'al, asked for, and then the reverse form of that, which is acceded to their ask. Whether they felt guilty and wanted to give them sort of reparations, wages for their labor, or like anything to please get you out of here, stop this disaster. So either way, that's what's in there, 33 through 36.
Baruch Adonai HaMbarak.
Baruch
Adonai HaMbarak le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'karvanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torto. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vatehezak Mitzrayim al ha'am lenaher leshalecham min ha'aretz ki ameru kulanu metim Vaisa ha'am epeteko terem yechmatz mish arotam zerurot basimlotam bismolotam al shichmam Ubnei Israel Asur Kidvar Moshe Vaishalu Mitzrayim Kalei Chesef Uchlei Zahav Usmalot Va'adonai Natan Ertchen ha'am ve'enei Mitzrayim vayashilum vanatzelu et Mitzrayim.
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher notan lanu Torah emet, v'chaye olam notan b'zachinu, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Also, well, a couple things, just informational. Today was originally going to be the Gan Shabbat, and all the Gan families were involved in doing a lot of things, and there was a kiddush lunch that they were sponsoring and part of, but because of the surge, we canceled that, but some of the Gan parents were still kept their Torah readings and half Torah readings alike, so we thank you for that. And in Kelsey's case, I just want to wish her a mazel tov. She this week became a tenured professor at Cal State East Bay. Tenured track professor, sorry, at Cal State East Bay. So,
That's great.
all right, the third aliyah, we are 37 to 42. We have the mixed multitude leaving along with the Israelites called Erev Rav. That should remind you of another phrase that you heard in the Torah portion last week. Just throwing out the teasers. And for the third aliyah, we call upon Ellen Kaufman commemorating a yard site today.
Talmud Yael ben Natan v'Chaya Shlishi.
Baruch hu et Adonai Hamborach. Baruch Adonai Hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
Asher b'char banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. Vayisu b'nei Yisrael, meramsei Sukkota, כשש מאות אלף רגלי, הגברים לבד מיתם, וגם ערב רב עלה איתם, וצאן ובקר מתנא כבד מאוד, וילפו את הבצק אשר הוציאו ממצרים, וגות מצות כי לא חמץ, כי גורשו ממצרים, ולא יכלו להימנע, וגם צידה לא עשו להם. ומושב בני ישראל אשר ישבו במצרים 30 שנה ו400 שנה, ויהי מקץ 30 שנה ו400 שנה, ויהי בעצם היום הזה יצאו כל צבאות אדוני מארץ מצרים, ליל שימורים הוא לאדוני להוציאה מארץ מצרים, הוא הלך לעשה לאדוני שימורים לכל בני ישראל לדורותם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chai olam nata b'toheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Thank you. It wasn't about that.
friends, we are on the fourth Aliyah now, the rules of the Korban Pesach, the Passover offering, and no foreigner or uncircumcised person can eat from this offering. The whole community offers it. This is not the, roast chicken, or if you're Sephardic, a lamb that sits on your Passover Seder table. Okay? This was like the big one brought in ancient times only. It doesn't apply today. We don't have a Korban Pesach.
Yamot Shlomo Hirsch ben Nuchem v'Shlema Revi'i.
Same Bible for this Aliyah, and Joe will continue to read.
Baruch Hu Adonai Havorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'am. Amin v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe v'Aaron zot bukat ha'Pasach kol benecha lo yochal bo v'chol eved ish miknat kasef umalkato az yochal bo toshav v'sachir lo yochal bo והיית אחד יחל לא תוציא מן הבשר חוצה ועצם לא תשברו בו כל עדת ישראל יעשו אותו וכי יגור איתך גר ועשה פסח L'Adonai imo lo kol zachar ve'az ikav lasoto ve'haya ka'ezra ka'aretz ve'chol arel lo yochal bo Torah yeh la'ezra ve'lager hagar betokefeh ויעשו כל בני ישראל כאשר ציווה אדוני את משה ואת אהרון כן עשו ויהי בעצם היום הזה הוציא אדוני את בני ישראל מארץ מצרים על צבאותם.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch Ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Yasher koach.
We are on the fifth Aliyah, now the consecration of the firstborn, from which we get, if you don't do that anymore, you can redeem them for 5 shekels, video and aben. Chapter 13, verses 1 through 4. And we call upon God, teacher, Lord, help them to read the Torah. And our fifth Aliyah is a guest. Here's the rest of family. Give him your Hebrew name.
Ya'amad Yochai ben Yaron ben Michal Chamishi.
Baruch Hu Adonai Baruch Hu Adonai Hamboah. Baruch Adonai Baruch Olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
Amen. וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, קדש לי כל בכור, כתר כל רחם, בבני ישראל, באדם ובבהמה ליבו. ויאמר משה אל העם, זכור את היום הזה, אשר יצאתם ממצרים מבית עבדים, כי בחוזק יד הוציא אדוני אתכם מזה, ולא יחל חמץ. היום אתם יוצאים בחודש אביב.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. All right, we have the 6th Aliyah, chapter 13, verses 5 through 10, the 7-day festival of Matzot, which turns into Pesach. And we're going to call upon Martin White to come on back up for this next Aliyah. And our reader is me, Marshall. Okay.
Yamud. Mordechai ben Raphael, Shishi.
Baruch Adonai Ambarach. Baruch Adonai Ambarach Le'olam Ba'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torto. Baruch Ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. V'haya ki yivyacha Adonai el eretz haknani. V'achiti v'hai amori v'achivi v'hai vusi. Asher nishma lavatecha latei lach eretz avachalav u'dvash v'yavarata et avodah hazot b'chodesh hazeh shivat yamim tochal matzot u'bayom hashvi'i chad l'Adonai matzot yachel et shivat hayamim v'lo yira'eh lecha chametz v'lo yira'eh lecha she'or v'chol gevulecha v'higarata levanecha v'higarata levincha v'yom hahu le'mor bavur zeh asa Adonai li b'tzeiti mimitzrayim v'haya lecha liot al yadcha u'zikaron b'neinecha leman tiyeh Leman tiyeh Torat Adonai beficha ki biyad chazaka tziyach Adonai mimitzrayim v'shamarta tafuka hazot lemoada miyamim yamima.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch Ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. And the 7th Aliyah, chapter 13, verses 11 through 16, the first issue of every womb. We also find in this passage, by the way, the seeds of the 4 children on Passover, and although the answers given in the Torah don't exactly line up with who gets which answer. It's a complicated thing because it's all a pedagogical device. We'll call upon Garrett Langfeld for the 7th Torah reading and Lynn Langfeld for the Aliyah.
Tama Leah bat Chaya v'Aaron shvi'i
Elohim Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher barak banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Behaya ki yaviacha Adonai el eretz ha'kna'ani ka'asher yishva lecha v'la'avotecha u'netanach lach v'havarta chol peter rechem v'Adonai v'chol peter sheker v'hema asher yeh lecha hascharim v'Adonai v'chol peter chamor tifdei b'seh ve'im lo tifdei v'arato v'chol bechor adam v'vanecha tifdei v'haya ki shalcha bincha machar lemor mazot v'amarta elav v'chozech yad hotianu Adonai v'mitzrayim v'beit avadim v'yechi ki hiksha faro v'shalchenu v'yaharog Adonai kol bechor be'eretz mitzrayim מבחור אדם ועד בכור בהמה, על כן אני זובח לאדוני כל פטר רחם הזכרים וכל בכור בני אפדה. והיה לאות על ידך ותותפות בין עיניך, כי בחוזך יד הוציאנו אדוני ממצרים.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tokeinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Yasher koach.
Please rise for the Hatsikana.
Yikadal v'yikadash shemei rabbi. Adi b'rakirate v'yamlich malchuteh. V'chayim od yom me'ron v'chayim kol beit Yisrael. V'hagala u'gizman kari. V'maru. Amen. V'yesh shemei rabbi mevorach. Ya'olam olam me'olam. Arvi Ramah v'yitnatzeh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei kudashah v'elam v'kol berchata v'shirata v'shemata v'nehemata d'amiram yomah v'yimaru. Amen.
Now we may be seated. The Maftir Aliyah, the last few verses, starting with verse 14. Again, the question of one of the four children, I believe it's the simple son, Mazot, what is this? And we call upon Elizabeth Sims to read the Torah, and Josh came in for the Maftir Aliyah.
Yamad Yoshua Yitzchak ben Chaim v'Sara Hamatir.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Ambarach. Baruch Adonai Ambarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen.
Mitzrayim, Mibahor Adam, Yabor, Aimam, Aken, Ani, Zut, Vechach, Zaviyah, Adonai, Opetzeh, Rehem, Haz, Karim, Lord, Adonai, Efteh, Vava, Vahi, Vahiyah, Lahot, Ayacha, Lutoteva, Ben Inecha, He, Bechutze, Zekian, Hotzianu, Adonai, Mitzrayim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Blessing for all who read. Yishabech Amatinu Abraham Yitzchak Yaakov Sarah Karach Leah Yivrechet V'Afrei Asher Elohim V'Makom L'Kol Torah L'Kvod V'Shabbat HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yivrechotam V'Mishpachotam V'Yifach B'Avam Tzchal V'Chol Tzedei V'Chol Shalachem V'Nomar Amen. For those who are ill, we're thinking especially today of Scott Lawrence, Valia Bat Razel, Barbara Rose, Lou Burl, Yulia Oak, Karina Golovat Hadav, Yehuda Tzvi, Leah Bat Shana, Shabbat Dov, Shimon Moshe, Ray Ramchak, Albert Alter, Rosie Gurman, Yechiel Ben Eliza, Shulamit Bat Leah, Miriam Bat Yehudi, Adele Mendelson, Brenda Gottschalk, Carmel Oria, Bat Ariel Sarah, Yehudi Bat Miriam Haron, Lana Nachman, David Gubman, Eliza Bat Raphael Esther, Moshe Ben Ruvain, Leona Richard, Rose Melanson, Renati Venus. If you have any other names of those who are ill, please just say them out loud this time.
Of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach Imotenu, Mekor HaBracha, Le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Please rise for Agba and Galila.
Yamad, Amavia Tamad, Hazolelet.
Torah asher Moshe b'nei Yisrael v'Adonai v'Yadoshem v'Yitzchayim v'Machazikim v'Tokei HaMerushar v'Yitzchayim v'Machazikim v'Tokei HaMerushar
We turn to page 395 of the Haftarah, Jeremiah 46, 13 through 28. It's again sort of anti-Egyptian, they're going to get it, what's coming to them kind of thing. but so it's not the most fun Haftarah, but it does also have an allusion to one of the plagues, locusts. So Jeremiah is talking about locusts in his time as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll be disappearing for a while to see who's in Shabbat Mishpacha and the like. And thank you, Josh.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'miim tovim v'ratzav v'divrehem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai abocher b'torah Moshe avdo u'v'Yisrael amo u'v'nbi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek. Adavar Asher diber Adonai El Yirmiyahu Hanavi Lavo Nebuchadnezzar Melech Babel Lehakot et Eretz Mitzrayim Hagidu v'Mitzrayim V'hashmiyu v'Migdol V'hashmiyu v'Nof Uftach Panches Imru Hidyatzev V'hachen mach ki achla cherev sivecha madua nischaf abirecha lo amad ki Adonai hadafo yirba koshel kam nafal yishel rehu vayomru kuma V'nashuva el ameinu ve'el eretz molatenu mipnei cherev hayonah karu sham paro melech Mitzrayim shahon evir hamoed chai ani neum hamelech Adonai tzvahot shemo ki kitavor beharim U'kekarmel beyam yavo Klei gola asilach Yoshevet bad Mitzrayim Ki nof l'shama tiyeh V'nitzta mein Yoshev Egla yefefia Mitzrayim Keretz mitzafon bava Gam schira b'kirba keglehem arbe ki gam hema hivnu nasu yachdav lo amadu ki yom edam ba'alehem et bikudatam kolah kanachash yelech Ki v'chayil yelehu Uv'kardumot ba'ula Kechotve etzim Kartu yara Neum Adonai Ki lo yechaker Ki rabu me'arbe Ve'en lahem mispar Ovisha Bat Mitzrayim Nitna b'yadam tzafon Amar Adonai tzvahot Elohei Yisrael Hineni vokei El Amon mino Vel Paro Vel Mitzrayim Vel Elohel Vel Melachel Vel Paro Vel Abotchim bo Untatim beyad mevakshei nafsham Uvyad Nebuchadnezzar melech Babel Uvyad avadav V'acharechem Tishkon ki mekedem neum Adonai V'atem al tira avdi Yaakov Vel techad Yisrael ki hineni Moshiacha merachok V'tzaracha meretz Shivyam V'shav Yaakov V'shakat V'shanan Ve'en Macharid Ata Al Tira Avdi Yaakov Numaranai Ki Idcha Ani Ki Yasechala Bechol Hagoyim Asher Hidachtika Shama Ve'otcha Lo Asechala Vayisarticha Lamishpat Venakeh Lo Anakecha Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Tzur kol ha'olamim Tzadik b'chol hadorot Ha'el ha'neman ha'omer be'oseh Hamdaber u'mkayem Shekol devarav emet b'tzedek Ne'eman atahu Adonai Eloheinu V'ne'emanim devarecha V'devar echad midbarecha Achor lo yashuv yerikam Ki el melech ne'eman V'rachaman atah Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el ha'ne'eman b'chol devarav Rachem al Tzion ki hu beit chayenu V'lalu v'nefesh toshia b'mehera b'yameinu Baruch atah Adonai Mesameach Tzion devanecha Samcheinu Adonai Eloheinu Be'eliyahu hanavi avdecha Uv'malchut beit David meshichecha B'mehera yavo v'yagel libeinu Al kiso lo yeshev zar v'lo yinchalu od achirim et kvodo Ki v'shem kodshecha nishbata lo shelo yichbe neiro le'olam ba'ed Baruch atah Adonai Magen David. There's more. There's more?
Yeah.
Al haTorah v'al havodah v'al hanbim v'al hayom haShabbat hazeh Shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu Likdusha v'limnucha lechavod v'ltifaret Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach umbarchim otach Yitbarach shimcha b'fi kolchai tamid le'olam ba'ed Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh haShabbat.
Oh, Yash Koach, thank you so much. Josh? And at least one of your kids arrived to hear you chant that final blessing. Walking up. Philak Yeladim doing a good job searching for gimels in the Torah, of which there are apparently very few. Yeah, really. There just aren't very many gimels for whatever reason, at least in this part of the Torah. And Susan and I then started looking and only found a couple, which is kind of funny.
And I couldn't find
So
any.
you'd have trouble winning in dreidel when you're if you're using the Torah. All right, we are going to continue with some of the additional prayers. We'll do the prayer for the state of Israel, which we can find on 224. Do it in both languages today. Avinu Shabashamayim, Tzor Yisrael, V'alo, Borech Emedinat Yisrael, Reshit Shimchat Kulatenu, Hagen Alea Be'vrat Hastecha, Ufros Alea Sukat Shlomecha, Ushlach Morcha V'yamitcha L'Rasher, Zrea V'yotzea, V'taknem Be'etza Tova Milfanecha, Chazek Et Yidei Mipnei Eretz Kodshenu, V'ankilem Eloheinu Yeshua, V'ater Nitzachon Tetrem, V'natata Shalom Ba'aretz, V'simchat Olam Be'oshveha, V'nomar, Amen. Our Rav that is in heaven, Rock of Israel and its Redeemer. Bless the state of Israel. First flower of our redemption. Shield her with the wings of your loving kindness. Spread over her the shelter of your peace. Send your light and your truth to her heads of state, her ministers and her advisors. Restore them with good counsel before you. Strengthen the hands of those who defend your holy land. Bequeath to them our God's salvation. Adorn them with a crown of triumph. Grant peace in the land and eternal joy to its inhabitants. And let us say, Amen. I'm going to turn now to page 231 for the Entree. We invite Winter and Ari to come and lead us in the Entree. They're going to lead Mizmor David in a moment. We all rise for the return of the Sefer Torah to the Ark. John, we're going to invite Obi and Dean to come up and stand by the Ark in preparation for its opening. Yahalu Hashem Adonai, ki nishkach shemo levato, odo aleret v'shamayim, v'yarech kerech yamo, tehila lechol chasiyah, Minei Yisrael, Yerobo, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Adonai Elim, Adonai Kalukos, Adonai Kibos Shemo, Yisrael Adonai Behar Kodesh.
Go Adonai El Hamayim, El Hakavot Kirim, Adonai my Ani Rabbi.
Go Adonai Ma'aroah, Go Adonai Behar, Go Adonai Shomer Arazim, Vaishomer Adonai Evarzeh Almayon.
Vayakidim Kimo Egel, Lebanon V'Sirion, Kimo Ben Yaenim.
Go Adonai Chotzet Lahodesh, Go Adonai Yachil Midbar, Yachil Adonai Midbar Hadesh, Go Adonai Yachol Zemayim.
Vayaso Ye'arad, Uchayecha Lo Kulo, Umer Kavod.
Adonai Hallelujah, Shema Yeshem Adonai Melech Leolam, Adonai Oz Le'olam Yitain, Adonai Yevarech Echamo Hashalom. B'chol Yomar, Ki Lakatov Natati Lachem Torati Al Tazovu, Eitz Ha'ininim, Le'machazima, Le'tov Ke'amerushar, Yerah So this is called A Few Phrases to Jog Our Memories, but we'll be doing a lot of riffing onto various other topics as we go through it. So the first phrase that we see in this week's Torah portion, the part we read, the triennial, is B'chatzi halayla, in the middle of the night. Now that doesn't remind me of anything in particular in the Torah, but you hear the middle of the night, it has lots of connotations in life, right? And in a moment we're going to see another at night thing in contrast with the day. Obviously the obvious thing is that night is dark and day is light, and there's some symbolism there, but not just symbolism. A lot of bad things happen in the middle of the night. It's a scary time. It's dark outside. If you were in ancient times, animals could be lurking, and even if you go outside right now, I can't spend the night in my backyard under the sukkah anymore. I was too with the raccoons and the possums and the skunks. The first times I did, I couldn't do it. Most crime takes place in the middle of the night. Of course, a lot of wonderful things take place in the middle of the night, too. A lot of creativity happens in the middle of the night. Artists often stay up all night doing things. That's where the creative juices get flowing. I personally am kind of a night person and like to be up sometimes. For the last few weeks, we said goodbye to both my sons this weekend. Their time in our house is the middle of the night. It's a whole different world in our house when they're home from college in the middle of the night, whether it's making some sort of weird concoction in the microwave, or playing Wii, or making music together, raps, guitar, piano, or a midnight run to In-N-Out. They're alive, most alive, in the middle of the night. So some good things happen. But now we get to, as we're released, Pharaoh gets up in the middle of the night. Vayakom paro laila. Pharaoh got up in the night, arose in the night, because there was a loud cry in Egypt, etc. And he told them to go, to go at that point. But as you know, it's not the end of the story. He's going to chase them, change his mind that one more time. But so Pharaoh getting up in the middle of the night, does that sort of ring any bells or opposite bells for you? Because to me it does. And you can shout it out if you have the answer, but because of the masks, I probably won't hear you anyway.
Is it the opposite of joy comes in the morning?
That's a good one. The opposite of joy comes in the morning, but and that's a good biblical example. I'm actually thinking of a different character, Abraham. Exactly. So Avraham, Vayashkem Avraham baboker, he rose early in the morning to, of course, almost kill his son. And Pharaoh's actually going to release them from. So there's a lot of paradoxical in that particular phrase. But Abraham rises early in the morning. He also, Vayakum Avraham, gets up also in the morning to speak to the Hittites concerning the cave of Machpelah, to purchase the cave. And from these expressions, we get the idea that it's meritorious to rise up early to do a mitzvah. And so a Brit Milah ideally takes place as early as possible, but not so early that it's the night before, because then it's too dark. And, well, first of all, they couldn't see in ancient times, and you want to be able to see. But in any case, that's one of the mitzvahs. But all mitzvot, you rise early. And so we have the contrast in this phrase between Pharaoh and Avraham. One at night, one in the morning. Later in that passage, Pharaoh says, Uvarachtem gam oti. And while you're leaving town, can you bless me also? Uvarachtem gam oti. Does that ring any bells? Exactly. Jacob and Esau. Esau asks so poignantly, right? Bracheni gam ani avi. Bless me too, Father. Don't you have a blessing for me? Which, of course, always reminds me of Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. Isn't there anything in that little black bag for me? So that every year, that is what it reminds me of. I'm the only one, but that's what I think of when isn't there anything in there? So, and you can sense that with Pharaoh too. He may be the enemy at this point, but he needs some blessing too, and you feel that pain. The third one, I'm going to riff a little more on this one, maybe even dangerously so. You have the Erev Rav, the mixed multitude, as they're fleeing Egypt, it's called an Erev Rav. Rav means like a bunch of people or a majority or whatever, and Erev means mixture. Does that remind you of anything? Specifically, anything we read last week? It's the plague of Arov. Erev Rav, this is the same word. And the plague of Arov just means a mixture. A mixture of what? Your Haggadah might have insects, it might have wild beasts. It's some sort of mixture of creatures that are doing bad things. Now, the mixed multitude is a group of people, it's a diverse group of people. According to the rabbinic sages, these were not the Jews who were slaves, these were or even maybe converts. It was hangers-on who took the opportunity to get out of town, which of course, if you were a slave, even not with the dominant group, you would take that opportunity too. But because of Arov, because that's seen as a plague and something really bad, the rabbinic sages then take this and they say that the Erev Rav was a bad group. And they're basing it on the fact that Arov is a plague, the wild beasts. And they actually even blame the entire incident of the golden calf, some of them, on this mixed multitude. Oh, it wasn't Aaron, even though he's throwing the darn thing in there. And it wasn't the compatriot Jews there, it was the mixed multitude. It's an ugly passage, you can't stand it. And in fact, most of us today probably kind of are excited about the Erev Rav. There were some other people who attached themselves to the Jewish people, probably eventually became Jewish people, contributed to the Jewish people. We just had a issue in the Omer about the converts that we've had and Jewish views on that, and I will tell you that I think over 20% of our households here have at least one member who converted to Judaism. I mean, it's really quite incredible. Without this part of the Erev Rav, our synagogue and most non-Orthodox synagogues would not function, right? It's we don't necessarily even know who they are. It's just part of our community now. Very different from 50 years ago, which you'll find out about on an upcoming Friday night as I continue to go through the documents. But I told you I'd be riffing on a lot of things. And now I'm going to talk about Israel for a moment. I promise this will all make sense in a moment. But there's a mixed multitude issue in Israel going on right now. It's very troubling. Now, I also want to say, most of you know by now, I do not like to criticize Israel from the pulpit at all, for several reasons. One is, I don't live there. I don't send my kids to the army, and particularly when it comes to issues of safety and terrorism, I completely defer to them, whether I like it or not. I'm not living there, so I don't feel like I have the right to criticize it from the diaspora. And number two, because you think there's not enough criticism of Israel somehow going on in the world or even in the Jewish community? All right, everybody's doing that, so I don't have to pile it on. But particularly when it comes to something like this, which is more of an internal Israeli issue, and I just can't see anything good about this, and it has to do with the mixed multitude, I want to mention this. So there's a guy named Yosef Kabita who is being threatened of being deported. He is part of the Jewish community of the Abu Yudaya, right? The Jews of Uganda. We sing Yisrael Chai. That's their community's song that we've had members of their community speak here at Temple Beth Abraham. And Yosef Kabita decided to make Aliyah. And he's converted 3 times, which I know is very bizarre. You should only convert once, but the Misrata Panim, which is another phrase which evokes nasty, nasty thoughts in my mind and many people's minds. That's the Interior Ministry. They control immigration and Aliyah and the like. And I think the best you can say about them is they're quite a bureaucracy. I'm not going to tell them. I'll tell you, my story is just pales in comparison to this. I'm not going to mention it, but it was kind of funny actually. But anyway, for another time. So the first time he converted in Uganda, it was their community converted through the conservative movement But because of some technicality, they weren't recognized as a community in 2010 when there was a conversion. He applied for Aliyah in 2011, or they weren't recognized until 2011, but he converted in 2010. They said it doesn't count somehow for us, so you got to convert again. So he converted again, even though he's leading the community at this point. Later, and now he's eligible for an Aliyah because Jews outside of the land of Israel, converted in diaspora, they may not be recognized by the Israeli rabbinate, but they are recognized by the state of Israel as citizens. And so he came, he made Aliyah. But for some reason, they said that this doesn't count either. And now he needs a third conversion. So he converts again in Israel. But now they're saying, well, that was too quick of a conversion, even though he'd already been Jewish for more than a decade.
Because you didn't know if he really wanted to be Jewish.
Yeah, exactly. Because at this point, you don't know after all the stuff he's going through. Plus, they had to do it quickly because he had to do it before the deportation. And now there's a hearing scheduled, but he's going to be deported before the hearing. But they have a stay. It's just a gigantic mess. It's terribly unfair. We could say it's racism. It's possible. That would be third on the list, in my opinion. Number 2 on the list has to do with they're worried about mass communities in Africa coming to Israel because they can't handle all of them. But the Abu Yudaya have been a Jewish community for a long time now. This is not a mass community, and Israel needs a certain amount of immigrant population as well, and these are immigrants who really want to be there and who are huge Zionists and love Israel. So it's really stupid in my opinion, but anyway, that's the number 2 reason. The number 1 reason is not about them, it's not about Africa, it's about me. And I don't mean me personally, I mean about non-Orthodox rabbis. And there's a lot of pressure from the Orthodox rabbinate on the immigration authorities, on the Misrad Panim, the Interior Ministry, and that is what's going on. Now, to take it just a little more personally, nothing to do with Yosef Kavita, who has a lot of advocates, by the way, legal advocates within Israel. I mean, it's a big fight within Israel itself, and actually the majority of the population supports his immigration. But anyway, there's these forces that don't. We have a member of the congregation, whose name I'm not going to mention, former member. She converted with me. She now lives in Tel Aviv. She's a professor of comparative literature at Tel Aviv University. She's married to an Israeli. And they're making her jump through all kinds of crazy hoops that I've never seen before. I've done this before. I've written these letters. They're accepted. She has not been accepted yet. It's probably related to this case, and they're making them jump through all kinds of hoops that they would have never had to jump through before. I'm writing all kinds of letters. They're asking for more letters. And then the crazy one, I'm actually afraid they're going to get me on this one, is that they want to know what was in the course that we taught them and how long they've been coming and when it started, all things that are okay. What's the curriculum? What books did they read? Now they want to know what's the relationship from the rabbi to the Beit Din that converted her, the rabbi who brought them to the Beit Din and the rabbi who was head of the Beit Din. Now, the way we do conversions for the most part in this community and most communities in America, even Orthodox ones, there's not a standing Beit Din necessarily that a whole bunch of rabbis bring them to. Beit Dins are ad hoc. We take the rabbi who's presenting the candidate for conversion runs that Beit Din. So what's the relationship? I had to write 2 separate letters saying I am the head of the Beit Din, and my relationship to the rabbi is I'm the rabbi who brought the Beit Din, and I said the same thing in the what's the relationship of the rabbi? I'm the rabbi who presents her conversion to the Beit Din. I'm also the Av of the Beit Din, and I've been here for 20 years and blah blah blah. But anyway, I know I'm talking very fast, and if you are on the screen, you probably can only moderately understand because I'm getting a little worked up about all this, and I want, as I should, thank you. And so I'm worked up for Yosef, theoretically, not just theoretically, but even more for the person that I converted, who I'm attached to, because I knew them very well, and she's teaching at Tel Aviv University. I don't want to see her. When, God willing, I get to go to Israel in 6 weeks or something, because if it were tomorrow, I could go, provided I have a test within, PCR test within 48 hours, which is hard to get right now, but I digress. Sandy, what were you going to say? Or you had,
I was wondering, are they half of them are about citizenship? Are they about marriage? Is this about status? Is this about, because she's married to an Israeli, and she shouldn't be able to meet there anyway, right?
Right, she should be, but they nevertheless do not. I have to get the specifics of that. She is still, even though she's married, because that part hasn't come through yet or whatever. Even though they recognize that she's married, they can still deport her at this point. And yeah, it's just crazy. I just for fun, it's awful. But so. Anyway, back 2 more points. Back to the phrases. Still, I digress to something important, but the phrases are pretty cool that they remind you of other parts of the Torah. And just for fun, because I don't want to end on such a negative note, I'm going to tell my Misrat HaPanim story, just because it's fun. So, when I was on my last sabbatical in Israel, for some reason I never checked that a tourist visa is only 3 months. And we were there for 4.5 months. And at one point, I learned this having to do with a rental car, because I was no longer eligible for this. They said, you're not, we have to charge you the regular price. And then I learned, wait, I might not be able to get out of here or to come back again because I'm now violating. So I went down to Misrat HaPanim, and you have to stand in line in order to make an appointment to come back. And then you have the appointment, and we're there, and we're sitting there, all 4 of us, right? The 2 little guys, Micah and Jonah, were like 7 and 10, I think, at the time. And people are leaving. This one person in particular, just in tears, like in utter tears. They meet with this one person, Miriam or somebody, and they're leaving they're leaving crying. And I'm just telling you, we're just like, I hope we don't get Miriam. And they call our number, and it turns out, no, that's wrong. You have to wait again. In the meantime, there's an African woman who can speak Hebrew but cannot write Hebrew. I can write Hebrew and speak terribly, and she has to fill out a form. And so we're trying to communicate, and I'm filling out the form for her. And I mean, I would do it anyway, but I'm hoping for some good karma here because I'm afraid of Miriam. And then it's all 4 of us. So we finally are called, and who do we get? Of course, Miriam. And all 4 of us go up there because it's all 4 of us. Then she sends the kids back. Go back, and starts yelling at them. And then also there's various people talking to each other and saying how are you in a million different ways, like ma nishma, ma shlomech, ma chadash, ma anyanim, ma habalagan, what David said. What's the craziness, which is exactly what it was like. And finally we get to Miriam, and after she yelled at the kids to go down, she actually turned out to be very nice to us, and we got to stay an extra few months. But I forgot, in the meantime, I had to have a letter from a rabbi attesting to the fact that I was Jewish, which of course, I write those all the time, but I couldn't write my own letter. And Rabbi Dardik of Beth Jacob happened to be in Israel during that time period, wrote me the letter, and that's what I presented, and we got to stay.
As long as we didn't have to work there.
As long as we didn't have to work.
If we were looking for a job, we were not going to be eligible to stay.
Right, thank you. I forgot that part. So we stayed, and anyway, going back for more, hopefully, in February. Yeah, they have plenty of rabbis. Absolutely. So that's my riffs and my phrases for today. Sorry, we rambled and digressed a little bit, but all important stuff. And anyway, I wish you a Shabbat Shalom. Enough of me, so Jacqueline's going to lead us in Musaf. Please rise, page 239.
Yikara, Vekara, Sheme Rabba, Ve'amad Barachute v'yamlich malchute. U'chayetehu beit Yisrael. Bagala, u'bizman karev. V'yimaru amen. V'yishmeru b'mevora. Le'olam ha'le'amaya yitbarach. Yitbarach v'yishtabach. V'yipar v'yitrumam v'yitnosei. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal. Shemei v'kudasham b'richu. La'elam yimchol berchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. V'yimaru amen. Adonai sevatai titachu v'yagitehi latecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzhak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor HaManorah Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'zocher chasdei avot, u'mevi goel et nebnehem, leman shemo be'ahava. Melech hozer Moshiach u'magid, Baruch atah Adonai, Magid Avraham u'moked Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, mechayim et imatav le'Moshiach. Mashiach ruach u'mori hagashem. Mechakel chayim b'chesed. Mechayim itim b'rachamim rabim. Somech noflim b'rofech holim. U'matir asurim. U'mekayem emdato. Mishenei Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hametim. Amen. Na'aritzecha v'na'adishecha, kesod tziyah, sarfei kodesh, hamakdishim, shimcha b'kodesh, kakatu b'yad nuyecha, v'karazeh el zeh v'yamar. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzvaot, Melech haaretz kevodo. Kevodo malei olam, meishatav shoalim zeh lazeh, ayim mekom kevodo, l'matam baruch yomeru, baruch kevod Adonai minkom u'yifen berachamim. Vayachon Avraham Shemo Erev HaBoker Bechol Yom Tamid Hamayim V'Yahava Shema Omrim Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Abinu, Malkeinu, Mosheinu, Beru Yashmeinu Rachama, Sheni Tene Kol Chai, Sheni Tene
Continue on our own. Page 247 to 258.
Page 259. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabba, ve'amad v'churte v'yamich b'chayechani v'mechunich v'yedo b'et Yisrael, v'agala u'bizman karibim maru. Yahish v'Rabba mevorach, ve'alma mu'ma ve'almaya yitbarach. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, yitadar v'yitalev v'yitala shemei d'kudashah. La'elam yikol b'chata v'shirata, tishbachata v'nechamata, da'amiran ve'amavim maru. Titkabal tzotavanu ba'utaman d'chol Yisrael, kodama v'honu b'shmaya v'maru. Yehishal marava min shamaya, v'chayim alina v'yakol Yisrael v'maru. Osei shalom b'mromav, v'yasei shalom alina v'yakol Yisrael, v'yakol yoshvi tava v'maru.
All right, Eloheinu, come on up. Some of the kids for some. David's going to come up and he's going to get the enviable task of passing out some treats after you do a rousing rendition of Eloheinu. Well, this is about the most rousing we've had in a while, so. Ein Eloheinu, Ein Kadoneinu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kamoshienu, Mi Eloheinu, Mi Kadoneinu, Mi Kemalkeinu, Mi Kamoshienu, No Eloheinu, No Eloheinu, No Kemalkeinu, No Kamoshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shekiru, Avotenu, Please rise to Eloheinu.
Aleinu Shabbat L'Adon Rachov V'Ateinu V'Ateinu Shalom Sanu K'Ve'Arato Shalom Samanu V'Shokotama Shalom Sam K'Ateinu K'Amen V'Govayu K'Kohamana
Sites we observed during the coming week. Many friends in this list that I had really the honor of helping to put to rest in participating in their funerals. I'm going to mention them first, actually, and then I may read their names again. Joe Zatkin, past president of the congregation. Agnes Pinkovic, one of the greatest volunteers that we've ever had. Sylvia Karsh, one of the nicest women you'll ever meet. And Robert Kruger, who died all too young, also just a really great guy. Thinking especially as well as Margaret Ashe, Sarah Blumberg, Malcolm Breslov, Victor Samuel Cohen, Alexander Dubrow, George Elberg, Yetta Engelberg, Ray Fine, Rose Frey, Barbara Love, Golden Verdue, Herbert Goldstein, Helen Hakim, Sarah Herskowitz, Lance Jacobs, Mildred Karen, the aforementioned Sylvia Karsh, Matt Kaufman, Maurice Kearns, Alex Kobinskaya, Robert Kruger, Molly Loeb, Stanley Levin, Robert Morris, Miriam Nathanson, Linda O'Brien, Rebecca Parker, Agnes Pinkovic, Betty Ray, Sid Rose, Betsy Rosenberg, Howard Rosenberg, Grace Lou Ross, Morris Rothman, Matthew Siemens, Morris Tobin, Tom Turchin, Celia Weiss, Nathan Yetzin, Marcus Zaslav, Joe Zatkin, and Ruth Zelenziger. We're in the Shloshim, the 30-day mourning period for Sidney Gordon, Shirley Fryerman, and Tom Rose. The memories of all who are with us. We ask all those who are in mourning or observing Yortzeit, as well as anyone else who would choose to do so, to rise for the mourner's Kaddish at this time. You can find it on page 267. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah v'yalmad yivrach Yeruteh v'yamlit malchuteh v'chayekom v'yomecho v'yedechol Beit Yisrael v'agalav v'zman karim v'yivru Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah v'vorah v'elam Amen Maya v'yitvarach v'yishtabach v'yitfa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei kutshah v'richu la'ela v'yitkol v'erchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Damiran v'yalma v'yivru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yivru Amen. Oseh shalom v'yimroma u'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yivru Amen. Turn on the Rapha. In memory of the people who've come to say Kaddish for me, a blessing to you always. And let us say Amen. So I want to, first of all, say thank you to our readers, David Goodwin and Michael Aronson. Also want to thank Jacqueline Polchik for leading us in Musaf. Our tour readers, Martin White, Kelsey Perdola, Joan Corin, Lauren Helfand, Marshall Langfeld, Garrett Langfeld, Elizabeth Sims, and our Hof-tour reader, Josh Kamen. And I also want to, of course, thank Josh Mailman, who makes all this streaming possible for those of you who are watching. We have no Kiddush lunch today, but we are planning on having Kiddush lunch next Saturday, and it is being sponsored by Rafi Brinus and Renat Fried in honor of Renat's 50th birthday. We will have a sort of regular week of activities that includes Gone Avraham and includes Beit Sefer. We are having it, even though we know that because we have a new set of rules, sort of, so you're exposed in your class at school, you have to wait 5 days basically. And so we will be at not full attendance, but we are nevertheless holding in-person religious school. We have Minyan at 8 a.m. in the sanctuary. Monday and Thursday, we have Taste of Tech Study at Outdoors, Rockies, Brooklyn Basin Market. And there's a Zoom book club meeting. That's Wednesday, January 19th. And so lots of good stuff. Actually, our teen program, our 8th, 9th, and 10th grade programs start this coming Wednesday. And finally, the week after that, we will be starting our Introduction to Judaism class. A lot of people who aren't in the congregation are the main folks, but if you feel like you have gaps and want to come and take the class, you're welcome to as well. 7:30 p.m. for that in the Baum Center. And I think that's it. David, anything to add, or we're all right? So, Adon Olam, Jacqueline, you up for that too, or you want me to do it? Okay, comfortably ensconced between various children. So, all right, I'll step back up for Adon Olam, page 269. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'Terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Le'Nasa B'Chefso Kol Zamaleh Shemo Nikra V'Yacharei Kitvot HaKol Levado Yimlok Nora Hu Haya V'Hu Hoveh V'Hu Yeh B'Tifara Hu Echad V'Ein Sheni L'Ham Shelo L'Hakbira V'Li Reishim V'Li Tachlim Lo'oz V'Ham Yisra V'Hu Eli V'Chai V'Li V'Tzorchem Li V'Ein Tzara V'Hu Nisi Umanos Li Kosi V'Yom Ekra V'Yado Avki Ruchi V'Ein Ishan Ya'ira V'Imruchi Gaviati Adonai V'Elo Ira Shabbat Shalom.
That's right.
Just a quick Adon Olam.